Drinking alcohol, smoking, and drug use are harmful to health.
In the shadowed folds of the Scottish Highlands, where the Clyde River carves its ancient wound into the earth, stands the Overtoun Bridge. Built in the 1890s from unyielding gray stone, it arches like a forgotten spine over a 50-foot chasm, its parapets worn smooth by centuries of wind and regret. To the casual traveler, it's just a quaint span connecting the village of Milton to the whispering woods beyond, a relic of Victorian ambition, now cloaked in ivy and mist. But to those who know its secret, Overtoun is a siren call, a threshold where loyalty twists into madness. Since the 1960s, over 600 dogs, loyal collies, sturdy labs, nimble terriers, have hurled themselves from the exact same spot, the right-hand side, midway across, where the bridge meets a subtle curve. They plummet, silent as stones, into the frothing gorge below. Most survive the fall, battered and bewildered, only to return days later and try again. A few do not. Vets call it a quirk of canine instinct, a magnetic pull from the thin soil beneath the bridge, rich with quartz that might scramble their inner compasses. Locals whisper of something older, something that hungers for the spark in their eyes. Ewan MacLeod had never believed in such tales. At 42, he was a man of ledgers and land surveys, a Glasgow surveyor, dispatched to map the old estate grounds around Overtoun for a heritage trust. Divorced, childless, and nursing a quiet ache from years of solitary pints, Ewan saw the world in neat lines and elevations, nothing a good ordnance survey map couldn't tame. His border collie, Finn, was his only tether to the wilder parts of himself. Finn was 9, a sleek black and white ghost with eyes like polished flint, rescued as a pup from a rain-sodden ditch near Inverness. They had walked the Munros together, Finn's nose always questing ahead, his loyalty a steady flame against Ewan's gathering chill. It was late October when they arrived, the date October 23, 2025, etched into Ewan's planner like a curse. The air hung heavy with the scent of damp peat and impending frost. The leaves on the overhanging oaks turned to blood-red shrouds. Ewan had booked a weathered cottage on the estate's edge, its thatched roof sagging under moss, the hearth cold as a grave. "Just a week's work, lad," he murmured to Finn that first evening, scratching behind the dog's ears as they unpacked. Finn tilted his head, ears pricked, but his gaze drifted to the window, where the bridge loomed in silhouette against the gloaming sky, a dark bowstring pulled taut. The next morning, Ewan crossed Overtoun on foot, his boots echoing hollowly on the stone. Finn trotted beside him, leash loose, tongue lolling in the crisp bite of the breeze. The bridge was narrower than Ewan expected, barely wide enough for 2 cars to pass, its surface slick with lichen. He paused at the midpoint, consulting his tablet for GPS readings, when Finn froze. The collie's hackles rose, a low rumble building in his throat, not a bark, but a vibration, like the hum of distant machinery. Ewan glanced down. "Easy, boy. What's got you spooked? Squirrel?" Finn's eyes were fixed on the right parapet, that infamous curve where the stone dipped just enough to invite a fatal glance over the edge. The ravine below churned with the Clyde's relentless murmur, whitecaps foaming like rabid mouths. Ewan followed Finn's stare. Nothing. Just the endless green tumble of ferns and bracken, the river a silver vein pulsing far below. He tugged the leash gently. "Come on, we've got contours to plot." But Finn resisted, planting his paws, nostrils flaring as if scenting something metallic on the wind. Blood, perhaps, or the ozone tang of storm clouds not yet gathered. They pressed on, mapping the estate's overgrown paths, Finn's unease fading into reluctant curiosity. By dusk, as they recrossed the bridge toward the cottage, the dog seemed himself again, chasing shadows in the heather. Ewan lit a fire that night, the flames dancing erratic patterns on the walls, and shared a tin of sardines with Finn. Old Bridge's got stories, eh? Heard the lads in the pub last night, yapping about ghost dogs and cursed spots. Daft as a brush. Finn thumped his tail, oblivious, curling up on the rug with a sigh. Ewan poured a dram of whiskey, the peaty burn chasing away the day's chill, and slept dreamlessly for the first time in months. It began subtly the following dawn. Ewan woke to Finn's whine, insistent, edged with something feral. The dog paced the cottage floor, nose bumping the door, eyes wild with need. Walkies already? Greedy gut. Ewan chuckled, clipping on the leash. They headed out into the fog-shrouded fields, but Finn veered stubbornly toward the bridge, pulling with a strength that belied his age. At the parapet, he strained against the lead, whining higher, his body quivering as if electrified. Ewan knelt, stroking his flanks. "What's out there, Finn? Rabbit hole?" The collie lunged, front paws scrabbling on the stone ledge, gaze locked downward. For a heartbeat, Ewan saw it too, a flicker in the mist, like furred shapes darting along the riverbank, gone before he could blink. He yanked Finn back, heart thudding. "No you don't, you daft beast." They retreated to the cottage, but Finn refused food, pacing circuits around the room, his claws clicking like Morse code on the floorboards. Ewan phoned his ex-wife in Glasgow, half joking about the haunted hound. She laughed, sharp and distant. "Always knew that Mutt was away with the fairies. Keep him leashed, Ewan, and call if it gets weird." He hung up, unease coiling in his gut like smoke. By the third day, the pull intensified. Ewan's surveys dragged, his theodolite readings blurred as he caught himself glancing at the bridge from every vantage, its stone teeth gnawing at the horizon. Finn grew gaunt, ribs shadowing under his coat, his once bright eyes dulled to smudges. At night, the dog would rise, ghosting to the window to stare toward Overtoun, a soft keening escaping his muzzle, like a pup separated from its dam, or something older, a dirge for the lost. Ewan scoured the internet on his tablet, the signal flickering like a dying bulb. Articles piled up. The Dog Death Bridge, as the tabloids dubbed it. Theories abounded. Ultrasonic frequencies from the water, visual illusions in the bridge's architecture tricking depth perception, even packs of feral mink luring the dogs with false sense of prey. One vet's blog chilled him. "It's not death, it's surrender. Something calls them home." That afternoon, leash doubled around his wrist. Ewan let Finn lead them to the bridge. The collie moved with purpose, a sleepwalker's grace, straight to the fatal curve. He sat, rigid, staring into the abyss. Ewan crouched beside him, the wind whipping their faces, carrying faint echoes, yips, whimpers, from the gorge. "What do you hear, boy? Tell me." Finn turned then, locking eyes with Ewan. In that gaze, Ewan saw not fear, but recognition and sorrow, as if Finn knew a secret too vast for barks, a promise whispered in the blood of every hound that had ever chased a shadow across the moors. Night fell like a shroud. Ewan bolted the cottage door, but sleep evaded him. Around midnight, a crash jolted him upright. Finn, hurling himself at the window, glass spiderwebbing, but holding. The dog's muzzle bled from the impact, foam flecking his jaws. "Christ, Finn!" Ewan wrestled him down, wrapping him in a blanket, but the collie thrashed, eyes rolling white. In the firelight, Ewan noticed it. Faint scars on Finn's pads, old and silvery, from that long-ago ditch rescue. He'd never asked how the pup got there, assumed a hit and run or abandonment. Now, doubt gnawed. Had Finn been drawn there once before? A survivor, marked by the call? Desperate, Ewan drove to the village pub, leaving Finn chained inside. The locals, faces carved from Highland granite, nursed pints in the low-beamed gloom. "Aye, the bridge takes 'em," grunted old Hamish, a gnarled crofter with a pipe clenched in tobacco-stained teeth. Started with the Overtoun laird's own hound in '62. Loyal beast, followed him everywhere. One morn, gone. Found at the bottom, neck snapped clean. Since then, dozens. Hundreds, if you count the ones that walk away changed. Ewan pressed for more. Hamish leaned in, breath sour with ale. Not just dogs, mind. Folk, too, back in the black days. Lovers' leaps, they called them. But the beasts, they sense it first. The thin place, where the old ones wait. Ewan scoffed, but the words stuck like burrs. The old ones, what? Fairies? Witches? Or worse, the restless shades of those who'd leaped before, envious of the living warmth in a dog's devoted heart. He raced back through the dark lanes, headlights carving tunnels in the fog. The cottage door hung ajar. "Finn?" Silence. Panic clawed his throat. He sprinted to the bridge, the moon a sickle slashing the clouds, silvering the stone. There, at the curve, sat Finn, leash trailing like a severed vein. The collie didn't turn at Ewan's cry, didn't flinch as his master stumbled forward, boots skidding on dew-slick granite. He simply rose, deliberate, and placed his paws on the parapet. The wind howled then, a banshee wail rising from the ravine, carrying fragments of sound. Come, join, home. Ewan lunged, fingers grazing fur, but Finn twisted free with impossible grace, his body arcing over the edge like a diver into welcoming depths. Time fractured. Ewan screamed, raw and animal, collapsing against the stone as Finn's form wheeled downward, black against the moonlit foam, before vanishing into the Clyde's maw. He waited for the splash, the yelp, but heard only the river's indifferent roar. Dawn crept in, gray and accusatory, as Ewan rappelled down the gorge on a borrowed rope from the village fire brigade, hands shredded on rock. They found Finn at the water's edge, wedged in roots, chest still rising in shallow, defiant breaths. Bruised, broken ribs grinding with each inhale, but alive. The vet in Dumbarton shook his head later, stitching gashes by lamplight. Miracle that. Most don't make it, but he'll never be right. The pull, it lingers. Ewan nursed Finn through the weeks that followed, surveys abandoned, the cottage a prison of bandages and broth. The dog mended slowly, but his spark dimmed. No more quests into the heather. He lay by the hearth, staring at nothing, a husk haunted by what he'd almost embraced. Ewan watched him, night after night, waiting for the keening to return. It did, softer now, a murmur, like voices under the floorboards. And in Finn's eyes, Ewan saw his own reflection, hollowed, hunted. For the bridge hadn't just called the dog. It had whispered to him too, in the quiet hours, promising release from the ledgers, the divorce papers, the empty years. Leap, it said. Join us. One storm-lashed evening, as thunder cracked the sky like brittle bone, Ewan clipped on the leash, not to restrain, but to follow. Finn rose without protest, leading them back to Overtoun. The rain lashed sideways, blurring the world to grays, the parapet a gleaming rail to oblivion. At the curve, Finn paused, looking up at Ewan, not with sorrow, but invitation. Come, join, home. Ewan's hand trembled on the lead. The wind tugged, insistent, carrying scents of peat and river and something sweeter. Freedom, perhaps, or the end of longing. He unclipped the leash. Finn stepped forward, paws on stone, and waited. Ewan's boot edged closer to the drop. Below, the Clyde sang its eternal lullaby, shadows stirring in the foam, furred forms, eyes aglow, tails wagging in spectral welcome. One step. The world tilted, and in that suspended breath, Ewan understood. It wasn't death the bridge craved. It was reunion. The loyal heart, unbound at last. They leaped together, man and dog, into the waiting arms of the ravine. The splash echoed, then faded. On the bridge above, the wind sighed, content. Another tale for the locals, another shadow for the mist. Overtoun endures, its curve a quiet promise. Listen close, and the call will come for you too.